Welcome to Howard's Guide, a series of videos that intend to investigate, display, and explain the various aspects of No Man's Sky's inner workings. Today we'll be talking about Wire Color Glitch. This glitch can be used to apply unique coloration to any object. It works by selecting an object, switching to a power line in placement mode, place the starting end of the line, and then switching back. It uses a power line because of the quick button access visible on the HUD. The result is an object with unique coloration independent from in-game color palette, depending on its position. Alright, now let's dive deeper into the glitch and see what we can discover from its behavior. Observation number 1. Power line has the same coloration. As you can see, when we freely place down a power line, both plugs will have the same kind of coloration. We can also see the wooden material commonly seen in decorative shapes, and this coloration is in turn transferred to the object it switches back to. Note that the coloration is not unique to the power line. As you can see on this screenshot, the unused stretchable wall has the same coloration on its middle pillar. Now that's radical! Observation number 2. Object faces away from the first plug. When we switch from the power line back to the object, we can see the object always faces away from the point where the first plug of the power line was placed. This differs from the vanilla behavior, where objects are normally parallel to the surface it is placed on. This is closely related to how object positioning works. We asked DJ Monkey, the creator of the base building app, and an expert on base building related save data. He points out that the power cables follow the same rules as other base parts, but you need to take special attention to the transform scale values. There are 3 different parameters that control the location, direction, and scale of an object. They are position, up, and add. Position defines the object's location relative to the origin of the base. Up defines its upward direction. Add defines its forward direction. In addition, the magnitudes of up and add defines its scale. Bigger the number, larger the scale. However, cables work differently. Position works the same as ordinary objects. Up and add, on the other hand, defines the direction and distance from position. The parameters are calculated by the game to find the endpoint of the cable. This leads to the conclusion that the position of the first plug has an effect on the placement of the object. Now that we have 2 crucial observations, let's test them against 2 viable possibilities. Possibility number 1. Base building color palette application. Normally, base objects uses material flag 53. Colorizable, to instruct the game to use a base building palette for color. A color palette is then applied in-game by accessing the color palette menu and choosing a color palette. All base building color palettes are defined in a single pool in the base building objects table. And so, all base objects can theoretically use all base building color palettes. In-game, visible color palettes are limited with the use of palette groups. In the save, customization data, including color palettes and materials, are saved in a parameter called user data. Looking at the saved JSON data, the user data field in the objects with the glitch applied are 0, meaning there is no customization applied. But here's the catch: the coloration persists through loading the save, which means the coloration is not a result from using the base building color palette, but something else entirely. Possibility number 2. Coloration from Procedural Generation. No Man's Sky is known for its procedural generation, and properties like color is no exception. Typically, buildables cannot use procedural generation. However, they can have procedural generated colors, albeit under very special circumstances. Objects that are spawned in through other mechanics using tables like Selectable Objects Table or NPC Spawn Table can be procedurally generated. Note that we cannot confirm if either mechanic is used in this specific situation, so only take this as a reference. But if we relate this back to the observations that coloration persists through loading, so the save must contain data for it, user data is not utilized and therefore other parameters must be responsible. Cable type objects exhibit the same behavior. Cable type objects use position factors differently, and the glitch objects are affected by set position factors. We can establish that their coordinates and direction factors are directly involved in this exploit, either to activate it, to determine its color, both, and more. Of course, the color may not be procedurally generated after all, because most objects on planet surfaces are colored using the planet color palette. It can also be a result from simple calculations, although it is unlikely because it is seldom seen in-game. So how does it work in simpler terms? Power lines are stretchable. The game handles its positioning in a different way to normal base objects. A side effect of it is that it messes with its colors. When a player does the glitch, the first plug is placed, setting its starting point. When switching back to the object, the game still treats it as if it is a power line. This messes with the positioning system and applies the same coloration to the object. It is also why the object faces away from the starting point of the power line. And when the object is placed, the game saves as position and directional factors, making the color persist through loads. And that's all there is to the wild color glitch. This has been How It's Guide. If you want to know more about the inner workings of No Man's Sky, remember to send us a request via email with a return envelope, or leave a comment down below. Join us next time. Thanks for watching!